Nerdanel is a Noldor elf, daughter of Motin, wife of Fëanor, and mother of the sons of Fëanor. Nerdanel's family is the only elf described as having red or brown hair, while she is described as having a reddish complexion. Nerdanel was born in the early Twin Tree era to Motin, a renowned Noldor blacksmith. Motin was known for having rare red hair, though Nerdanel does not seem to have inherited his hair color, instead having brown hair. On the other hand, Nerdanel has undoubtedly inherited her father's craft, and is a skilled sculptor whose work is so lifelike that the uninitiated will try to talk to the statues. Some of Nerdanel's sculptures are not based on reality, but are purely imaginative, and are considered to be powerful and strange, but undeniably beautiful. Nerdanel loved to roam the shores of Eärwen, and it was during one of these wanderings that she met Fëanor, son of Fenway, and the two traveled together many times, eventually falling in love and marrying. Nerdanel and Fëanor had 7 children, a number of children rarely seen among elves: Mazaloth, Maglar, Kelcorn, Caranhir, Curufin, Amrod, and Amraz. Amraz. Nerdanel is known for her wisdom, and unlike her husband, Nerdanel has a calmer and more understanding personality. For a time, she was the only one who could restrain Fëanor's temper. Some of her and Fëanor's 7 sons inherited her temperament. When Fëanor led the Noldor elves in their revolt against Vila, Nerdanel grew estranged from her husband. She did not join Fëanor in his exile to Verminoth, and during that period she lent her home to Indies, daughter of Ingwi. She likewise refused to follow her husband to the Middle Continent, and begged Fëanor to leave the twins Amrod and Amroth behind for her. Fëanor flatly refused, saying that Nerdanel would be a bad wife if she did not want to follow him. However, Nerdanel remained on Eärwen, as she had been warned by Olli that defiance of Vila would only lead to the destruction of Fëanor and his sons, and so it did. Anairë is the wife of Fingolfin, the Elven king of the Noldor. She played a relatively low-profile but important role in Elven history. Although she is not described much in Tolkien's writings, her presence had a profound effect on Fingolfin and his children. Anairë is a Noldor elf of Valinor, living in the time of the light of the Twin Trees. She was a noble of the Noldor tribe, but her specific origin and family background were not mentioned in detail in Tolkien's works. As Fingolfin's wife, she became queen of the Noldor elves and lived with Fingolfin in Valinor. Anairë and Fingolfin had an amicable family, and their marriage provided a stable foundation for Noldor elven society. The two had 4 children: Fingon, Turgon, Findis, and Eärwen. All of these children went on to play important roles in Elven history, especially Fingon and Turgon, who each became important leaders of the Noldor. When Fëanor incited the Noldor to rebel against Vila and leave Valinor for the Middle Continent, Fingolfin decided to follow his half-brother Fëanor in order to protect his people and clan. Anairë, however, chose to stay in Valinor rather than follow Fingolfin and their children to the Middle Continent. This decision may have reflected her loyalty to her homeland and to Vila, or it may have been motivated by a premonition of impending disaster. Although Anairë is not personally involved in the events of the Midcontinent in Fairy Diamond, her influence remains far-reaching. Her children played key roles in the history of Midcontinent, especially Turgon, who went on to found the hidden elven kingdom of Gondolin. Anairë's choices allowed her to live out the rest of her life in Valinor, but her children and husband endured many hardships and obstacles and ultimately varied fates. Anairë is a quiet but important character. Her story exemplifies the power and influence of female characters in Elven society, even when they choose to stay away from conflict and war. Eärwen is an important character in Elfen Diamond, the wife of Prince Finarfin of the Noldor clan, as well as the queen daughter of the Sindar clan, from the Teleri, the Oceanic clan of the mighty Arda. Eärwen's familial background and her marriage are of great significance in Elvish history. Eärwen was the daughter of Olwe, king of the Teleri. Olwe was the brother of Elwi, the leader of the Sindar, and as such Eärwen was a cousin to Luthien, the daughter of Miriam of Doriath. Eärwen was born in the ocean city of Alqualand in Valinor, where her family ruled over the vast population of Teleri elves. The Teleri are elves who love the sea and sailing, and they enjoy a peaceful and beautiful life along the coast of Valinor. Eärwen's marriage to Prince Finarfin of the Noldor marked a bond and alliance between the Teleri and the Noldor. Finarfin was a third-generation prince of the Noldor, whose father was Finwë, the supreme king of the Noldor, and whose mother was Indis. The union of Finarfin and Eärwen was not only a union of two elven clans, but also the union of symbolizes the relationship between the two elven clans, the Noldor and the Teleri. Eärwen and Finarfin had 4 children, all of whom have an important place in the history of the Midlands. Finrod Felagund was the king of Nargothrond and was known for his wisdom and courage. Angrod followed his older brother Finrod into the Middle Continent and ruled in Dorthonion, Bereliand. Aegnor was Angrod's brother and ruled Dorthonion with him. Galadriel, one of Tolkien's most famous female characters, went on to become queen of the mid-continental forest kingdom of Lothlorien. Eärwen's children played an extremely important role in the history of mid-continent, and their courage, wisdom, and tragic fates add depth and complexity to the history of the elves. Eärwen, like her husband Finarfin, chose to remain in Valinor when the Noldor rebelled against Vila and decided to leave Valinor for the Middle Continent. Unlike many of her Noldor kin, Eärwen did not take part in the rebellion instigated by Fëanor, but instead stuck to her homeland and continued to live with the Teleri, and Finarfin returned to Valinor in the wake of the tragedy at Alqualand to reunite with Eärwen. Eärwen is a character full of grace and wisdom in Fairy Diamond, and her presence symbolizes the bond and peace between the elven communities. Though she was not directly involved in the events of Mid-Continent, the accomplishments and sacrifices of her children in the history of Mid-Continent make her an important historical figure. Her influence lies not only in her role as mother and wife, but also in her pivotal place in the genealogy of the elven race.